What's on, y'all? Welcome back to another show. I'm going to keep it very, very much along the Philip Schofield line as I'm going to continue part 3. Watch the Eamon Holmes interview. Check out some more news about what's going on over the last 24 hours that's broken. Then we're going to have a look at the Sun's first exclusive interview with Philip Schofield. And we will find out from there, what he's got to say, his defence, his kind of explanation for what's gone on over the past week. I want everyone to remember, obviously this man is innocent of any crime so far. There is no evidence of any crime against Philip Schofield, so I want to make that openly, plainly clear. That is suspicious and as suspect and as weird as all of this may seem, doesn't appear, as far as public information, as far as looking at everything that I can find, that any crime has been committed. Is it suspect? Are there things that make you think, oh, well, that's a bit close to the edge? Yes, there's loads of things like that. But as far as we're aware, this man is an innocent man in the eyes of the law. So we all have to be very fair and remember that, really. In the last episode, we had a little gander. So in the second part, I thought we'd look at the short half of, it's not even half, if I'm honest with you. We'll look at the last 10 minutes of the actual interview itself. Find out about what Eamon's got to say about the situation as a whole. Do some analysis of the whole interview from there. So yeah, without further ado, I'm not going to listen to Dan woot on and yap on. Let's get right into Eamon. So second part, let's do this.
Let's get on to the Queen's funeral.
Well, indeed.
They were there. They were there to make a film on the Queen's funeral. Have you seen the film?
There was no film, was there?
Well, apparently they were there.
There was
were
no
there
camera.
To make that. Well, they were there. That's the official line given by the editor.
Oh, okay. So the day that they jumped the queue, Beckham queued up, didn't he? So I think Beckham's the one to hold, because he's way more famous than Phil and Holly, for a start. He's way more talented and way more famous. So, Beckham obviously stayed in the queue for 8-9 hours, queue to see the Queen lay to rest. These guys jumped the queue. And that is a very good point from Eamon. Where is the film?
Of the programme, that they were there to make a film. Now, unless there's any documentary evidence of this, I would put it to you, that is another lie. So Philip Schofield admits he lies. ITV lie. The place is a den of iniquity, an absolute den of iniquity.
A den of iniquity, that's brilliant. That is a good name for a band.
Brings us to that night at the National Television Awards where everything changed. And I was there that night. I saw a lot of what went on, and I heard a lot of what went on. And the young colleague, who clearly got very drunk and confronted Phillip, Holly, various executives, speaking about what had gone on. And then lo and behold, Eamon, just a few days later, you're asked, out of the blue, confronted, ambushed, you might say, to reveal that Phillip was going to come out as gay. So what...
Okay, so the timeline is that there was an argument at the National Television Awards. Some sort of outcry, something happened at the NTAs. And then the following Friday, so I'm guessing 7 days later, 6 days later, 5 days later, Eamon and Ruth were asked to then announce or be part of the announcement that Phillip was gay. Kind of weird how that all falls in.
What happened that night at the National Television Awards from your perspective, and how did it lead on to Phillip coming out?
Well, there's a couple of things I'd like to say. First of all, the National Television Awards, there is this event which you've got to understand this morning, under the guise of Phillip and Holly, is a very false existent. FAF, I won't tell you what those initials stand for.
We're after the watershed.
False as fuck, probably.
And I can work it out.
But the first word is false. And the second word is as. You can leave it to the third word.
Fishes.
They are then allowed to turn up the next day advocating the use of drink or something else, I don't know, and sit on a couch.
Something else? I don't know. I mean, Eamon, come on. Like, that is the use of alcohol or being drunk and the use of something else.
I'm so drunk, I haven't been to bed. Oh, I haven't been to bed either, I'm drunk, whatever. And yet, ITV, this is at a time with the legacy of Ant McPartland, lovely fella, who was in a driving accident where people were injured and he was under the influence of drink. And yet they can promote that. Ruth and I
take a bit of umbrage with that, if I'm honest with you. It's two different shows, two different times, two different people, two different perspectives on the way. I think if Ant and Dec had turned up to Saturday Night Takeout drunk, it'd be a different thing. But this morning is portrayed as that kind of a homely show, isn't it? And we're normal people get drunk, normal people have hangovers, and, you know, normal people also like to vicariously live their lives through celebrity. So when Phil and Holly and people win awards at the NTAs and you get to see them the morning after a little bit worse for wear, especially if you've watched the awards show and you've seen them getting drunk, having a few wines, having a good time, and you're having a couple, you're kind of in the spirit with it, you can see why people would get lost and enjoy seeing them hungover and feeling the way that they might be feeling as well. So I don't know if you can equate the two things of Ant McFarlane's drunken disaster of a car crash to them being hungover in the morning. I'm not sure if those two things equate very fairly. I think it's two different. Like I said, if Ant and Dec had turned up on Saturday Night Takeaway drunk, it'd be a different story.
are prevented from advertising chocolate in an advert.
But yeah, that's not fair. Ruth and Eamon then weren't allowed to advertise chocolate because it was seen as an unhealthy, you know what I mean? I kind of get that. So if you've got two presenters from your show who get drunk and go on air and that's okay, surely promoting chocolate is okay as well, right? Unless this morning was sponsored by some chocolate deal and they were going for rivals, then you could possibly understand why that would be an issue.
Because it is a poisonous product. It would be poisonous to advertise chocolate.
There you go.
Is poisonous, and you're not going to be allowed to do it.
Bad word.
So you would look, and as freelancers, we're all freelancers, and we've got to earn our living. People think we're guaranteed a living forever and whatever. So Holly and Phillip, he can sell cars, she can sell whatever she wants, but she's worried about not being able to sell anything now because her image may well be damaged because she's associated with Phillip now. But these are rules for one and rules for the other. Does that make me bitter? Maybe it does.
Yeah.
It does make me bitter.
It will make you bitter, wouldn't it? Of course it will. If you can see that the two main people are allowed to go and sell cars and Aunt Holly can start all the businesses in the world that she wants, and you and your wife want to gain some extra funds but you're told you're not allowed, you can see why some bitterness would rise. And that's kind of what Phillip said at the start of the first interview, was that people that are speaking from a place of bitterness or vitriol. So you can kind of, you know, but I understand why there would be bitterness. I do, you know. He got booted out the door. The rumour is he got booted out the door because Phillip had a word with management and they didn't like him, so they got them gone.
So they come in doing their drunk act the next day. So it's either an act, in which case it's false, or they are drunk, in which case it should not be allowed.
Well, because just a few days later...
Yeah, I don't know about that.
You are called, I believe, very early on a Friday morning.
Yeah.
You had no notice of this. No. You were due to be presenting a normal show, and then you're called and told what?
Right, so I'm driving in. Phillip will be arriving in to appear on the programme today. Why? Oh, we can't tell you. We can't tell. We hosted today. Holly will be coming in as well. You will be hosting bits of the programme, but they have got something to say. I'm thinking, oh, good, hopefully he's going. You know, hurrah.
Wow. Hopefully it's the good news that he's buggering off.
But it wasn't to be, because even you can't shame him enough. So anyway, he comes into our dressing room and he falls down on his knees. I mean, the acting is amazing. And he falls down on his knees crying. And I said to him, what's the matter? What's the matter? I'm gay. I'm gay. And I walked over and I said, is that all? Well, what is...
Is that all? What you on about? Is that all? Okay. Oh, man. Like, the situation's surreal. The actual situation in my head, like, of him kneeling down crying is surreal.
What's this? What is... I thought he'd killed a child or something. And I stood him up, I pulled him up, and I said, what are you talking about? So you're gay? And that tied into a lot of things that, you may have heard, and I think anybody to be imprisoned in a life that isn't true to them would be totally wrong.
Yeah.
And we were very supportive, and Ruth...
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody's got a problem with Phillip coming out as gay. I think that whole situation had passed beyond it. It's like, though, you told us the truth, but not the whole truth. And I think that's where people are getting a little bit agitated and a little bit kind of, what else is there? Because if you'd come out as gay and said, look, I've ended up having an affair with a colleague at work, it's not right, blah, 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 when all of these whispers of him having this affair, grooming, whatever it might be, were always going to be about when he didn't address that issue. And now it's come out tenfold because it seems like there's been a cover-up. When maybe there, a cover-up might be a bit harsh in regards to, don't get me wrong, a few people have lied and bent a few rules, so to speak. But whether or not it's a full cover-up or it's just, he didn't give us the entire truth at the time, that's very much up for debate as well.
Hugged him and we said, look, we'll stand by you, it's all okay. I mean, it wouldn't enter our minds that the man would have been discriminated against for being gay. So we were
in this society, it's favourable, isn't it?
Very, very supportive of that.
Do you feel you were used?
Oh boy, were we used? We went to the studio and Miss Holly took over with a pre-prepared statement. Miss Holly's supposed to be dyslexic. She read this very, very well.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow, Eamon. Oh, wow. She's supposed to be dyslexic, but she read this very, very well. Knocked it out the park. Knocked it out the park.
Read this incredibly long statement very, very well. And so they knew in advance. They're with the same agents as we are. We're not informed of this in advance, so we're taken for fools. So we get there, and Ruth is constantly asked by Emma Gormley, the director of Daytime, and Martin Frizzell, the editor of the programme, right, do you want us to write something for you? Do you want a script? Do you want to say this? Do you want to say... what are you going to say? Are you sure? Are you sure about what you're going to say? So we then began to feel there was a certain line being pattered in. We said, no, I know what I'm going to say. Us believing the truth is that Phillip is revealing he's gay and coming out. And Ruth ad-libs without any autocue or anything else. I just decided...
She did a fantastic job, by the way. Watch that little clip of Ruth's a pro presenter. Like, when he actually said professional presenters, I think Ruth should have been in there. I think she's really good.
At this point, not sure. I'm just beginning to feel bad vibes about this. I'm not saying anything. So I don't say anything in the opener. Ruth says what she has to say. Then it goes to those two in their choreographed way. Knowing how false they are, I'm sure they rehearsed it for days as to what they were going to say and do.
Oh, yeah.
Who was going to hug. And Holly was very specific about where she sat, where Phillip sat, where Ruth sat, where I sat. It was all choreographed, right? Then we notice the Sun newspaper's here. So the story was sold to the Sun newspaper.
What? So they announced it in the ITV studios, and in the studio at the time, behind the scenes, behind the camera, the Sun was there. The Sun newspaper was there. A writer, a photographer, or what have you. What? That seems like... But then, yeah. Oh. Why would you invite the Sun? What did the Sun have on Phil that they needed that exclusive? That's a fair question, isn't it? Else why would This Morning not be the place to break it and do all the exclusive stuff and then just let the Sun do what they usually do and just copy and paste?
The director of programmes, Kevin Ligo, was there from ITV.
Wow.
The director of Daytime, Emma Gormley, was there. Martin Frizzell was there, the editor. The agents, James Grant YMU, were there for all of this. And we began to feel this is not our show at all.
So this has been planned for some time.
It's been planned for some time. And it then materialises, obviously all is not what it seems. Because he has obviously done a deal with the newspaper to give a version of what the newspaper knew.
What?
And it was all a bit weird.
Yeah.
At that stage, though, I believed he was gay and that's what he was coming out, and that was the information we were given. We were lied to.
Look at Eamon there. That Eamon is distant, isn't he? Ruth's obviously going to get involved. Her empathy If she didn't get involved, it would show a real fakeness, because women are truly empathetic in these situations, aren't they? They're gentle, they're kind, they want to make sure that Phil's feelings are going to be okay. But look at Eamon, look at his body language. He is withdrawn, his hands are together. He's kind of sat in himself a little bit, you know what I mean? I don't think he's uncomfortable with Phil coming out. I think he's uncomfortable with what this situation may lead to, or where it's had to have come from.
And Ruth and I, to this day, are embarrassed and ashamed when we see those pictures, when we see the toils that some people who are tortured by their sexuality have to go through. And this man, was this a cover-up for something else? And something else which does not reflect well on him, of course, bearing in mind his brother is now a convicted paedophile as well.
So like, Eamon would know the dates, so to be mentioning that, Eamon would know the dates and how young the kid was when he worked there.
So we feel angry. We feel angry about that. We feel used.
Just finally, there seems to be a real political element to all of this, because Philip Schofield was protected. You went, Jeremy Kyle went, Piers Morgan went, Carol McGiffin went. It feels like if anyone questions Carolyn McCall's woke narrative, they're out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'd say there's absolutely no question about that.
Yeah, ITV's the trap, innit? Like, when you look at all the programmes that they produce, they're the trap. They are the liberal woman's reality TV trap of a TV corporation. They play everything that keeps people dumb, from X Factor all the time, from Britain's Got Talent to Love Island to I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. They play all of these shows that just keep people dumbed down. It mean nothing. Don't teach anyone about anything in the real world. They're just absolutely keeping the population dumbed down. They are absolute shit sink, ITV.
They like a certain order, even if that order is corrupt. It doesn't matter if they're bending the rules or breaking the rules, but as long as they instigate lockdown, then it's their way or the highway. But I mean, none of them are even honest. I mean, McCall never, even though the order came from her to get rid of me through her lackey, Emma Gormley.
Emma Gormless.
There's never a reason given. They can't be upfront about it. And there does seem to be a political element. I mean, if, as I was told, and I wasn't found guilty of anything via Ofcom or anyone else, it was through me saying to a reporter saying 5G is perfectly safe. Of course 5G is perfectly safe. And I said, who says so? He said, well that's what the government's saying, that's what everybody says. I said, well, you should always be free to question the narrative.
Should always be free to question the narrative. Question everything. Question this video. Question what Eamon's saying. Question Phil's defence to it. Everything needs questioning and scrutinisation, because that way you can just get to the bottom of what the actual truth is. You know what I mean? So ask questions. Never be afraid. The dumbest question ever is a question not asked.
Now, apparently that was equivalent to me saying 5G spreads COVID, which I never once said. But I said that you should be able to question the narrative about all things.
Which is the job of a journalist.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
Definitely.
You know, they said cigarette smoking was safe. They say alcohol abuse is safe, and then suddenly it's not safe. Oh dear, no, we'll change your mind on this. Could you believe a word that comes out of a lot of these government, you know, what comes out of 10 Downing Street? So if 10 Downing Street got influence on ITV, answer yes, they had.
Wow.
Had certain advertisers got influence? Yes, they had. They said suddenly we...
Governments managed to get their fingernails in lots of liberal media. I think if you look at Twitter and the Twitter expose of all the Twitter files and what the government, especially the US government, but governments worldwide were requesting of Twitter at the time, was absolutely ridiculous.
We represent 5G. And we're going to withdraw 10 million quid of advertising from you if you don't get rid of this guy.
Yeah.
And then there was one other person, of course, who had a lot of influence on Carolyn McCall, a certain Ms. Markle, who didn't like the fact that you had criticised her in the past, didn't like the fact that Piers Morgan didn't believe her lies. So she seems to have a lot of influence on woke ITV now.
I think
too.
the way of dealing with Carolyn McCall and Meghan Markle and whatever, is to laugh at them and to laugh at their wokery and just laugh. Really say, seriously, because they're humourless. They're all humourless. And I would think now we're at a stage where ITV and their share price, which will have dipped, and money talks, that you've got to look at how she's running the station, what she allows to happen. Kevin Ligo, who stays silent on everything and should not be allowed to, stays out of everything. Oh, nothing to do with me. It's either the big boss woman or it's whoever runs daytime. It's everything to do with you as well. You could intervene if you wanted to. And then the editor of This Morning, who cultivated a huge area whereby...
It seems like ITV needs a good little shift out as well. The BBC need it every few years. ITV seems to have been just plodding along for a number of years now. Maybe a good shift out and a good clean out from the bottom to the top will actually do the channel the world of good. Get rid of the mind-numbing shit it produces. Actually make it a channel worth people wanting to watch, because television's dying, isn't it?
Anything to indulge Philip and Holly. What Philip and Holly want, Philip and Holly get.
Wow. So, I think I am not going to dive in too much, but there was lots of accusations from Eamon obviously made there, from the accusations of not being allowed to take extra sponsorship whilst Phil and Holly were allowed to drink and be drunk on set, which obviously, like he said, he had a bit of gripe with, a bit of animosity held towards them both, from the coming out incident being set up weeks in advance to him and Ruth not having an idea that it was even happening, which obviously would have left them with not a clue that he was coming out as gay even. So everybody would have been sat there discussing the idea, the way the show's going to work, and those two would have just been flumped right out without any kind of questioning or idea or involvement in the skit or in the announcement itself. So there's obviously the other accusation that he was pushed due to the fact of his views on Meghan Markle, 5G. He said a throwaway comment about 5G. ITV also pushed Piers Morgan, Carol McGiffin, other people who had slightly what you'd call right-leaning views. ITV just elled and digged out. So some absolutely massive accusations there from Eamon Holmes. I don't think I'm going to do any more on this video. I will just cover some news stories and watch the Phillip video in a later video, I think that would be for the best. So if you've managed to watch the video all the way through, I am super duper grateful. Let me know what you think about Eamon Holmes' opinion. Does he sound a bit bitter? Is he fair? Is he maybe a little bit, butthurt that he got pushed and him and Ruth weren't allowed to do the same stuff as Holly and Phil, or is he kind of justified in his feelings and his emotions and his interview there? So more of this will keep coming. I'm sure it's going to keep flowing for the next week or two, which also makes me wonder, what are we not being told? Whenever there's a story this big about a celebrity, I always think to myself, what are we not being told that's super important? But anyway, on that note, it's much love from me. Thank you for watching. Comment, like, subscribe, all the rest of it. Peace.